Good morning or good afternoon or good evening. I want to discuss what CAT is all about. Everything about the exam. And what will you expect to see in the paper? Start this. This is a CAT new format. This is a format from CAT 2014 onwards. And from 14 they've said this is the format they'll have. The 50 questions in math or quant. In this we expect about 32 to 35 to be from math and about 15 to 18 from DI or data interpretation, where you're given a bunch of charts or graphs and you have to say what is the growth rate, what is the share, etc., etc., etc. Then there's 50 questions in verbal, which will split into three ways, three parts. RC, which is reading comprehension, where you get a passage and a bunch of questions after that. Logical reasoning, which is essentially puzzles, and others, which will get deeper into what those others comprise. Okay. Three sections, three parts, or nearly one third questions. So 50 questions for quant, 50 questions for verbal, a total of 100 minutes. The time we get is 170 minutes for the entire paper. That is 2 hours and 50 minutes. This is on an overall basis. What do we mean by that? You can allot time between quant and verbal at your own discretion. So the student gets to choose how much time goes into quant, how much goes into verbal. A student can shift from one section to another any number of times. So this is not a separate time limit for quant and a separate time limit for verbal. Keep that in mind, because that becomes an important idea. Now, even though the time limit is on an overall basis, there will be what the colleges call as section cutoffs. So you will have to clear a certain barrier in quant and verbal. So how you manage the time to maintain that balance, that is something that adds a little bit more pressure onto the student. So not only do you have to crack this exam on an overall basis, you'll also have to keep in mind that you've got to get a decent score in quant and a decent score in verbal. Keep that in mind. Now let's go dig deeper into this quant section. What does this contain? I'm going to break this into 4 parts. One is basic quants. What do I mean by that? Basic arithmetic, like averages, percentages, profit and loss, linear and quadratic equation, some simple ratios, some progression, some simpler topics in math, which usually gets covered in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. That would account for about 12 to 13 questions, 12, 14 questions. Next bit, slightly more complex systems, number systems, geometry, coordinate geometry, inequalities, functions, all of those will account for about 17 to 19 questions. And so this is very simple math. This is slightly more advanced, but keep in mind, there's nothing that's going to be asked in this question that a good 10th standard student cannot ace. Keep that in mind. The syllabus is not vast. The questions are still tough, application is still tough, the syllabus is very narrow. Right? We'll have data interpretation questions, about 15 to 17 of them. Beyond this, you may get 1 or 2 questions or 2 or 3 questions on data sufficiency and some reasoning based questions, which have the basis mathematically, but it's not really solving something and getting to an answer. Right? Now, what does the verbal section contain? Reading comprehension, about 15 to 17 questions. Logical reasoning, about 15 to 17. This we have already seen. What does other questions contain? Then paragraph completion. Essentially, they'll give you a paragraph with the last sentence has been knocked off. Out of the 4 choices, we'll have to select one best last sentence. Sentence rearrangement, 4 sentences given, jumbled up. In some order, they make a paragraph. So B, A, D, C or D, A, C, B. You'll have to find out which order they make a paragraph. Sentence elimination, they give 4 statements, out of which some 3 make a paragraph. You'll have to find the one that is not part of the paragraph. Right. We have text completion, which is essentially fill in the blank with words. Sentence correction, which is essentially grammar based. It could be 5 sentences, of which some 2 or 3 could be grammatically incorrect. You'll have to identify which 2 or 3. Word usage, a particular word used in different contexts, exactly one of which could be wrong. We'll have to identify the wrong sentence. Again, even in here, if you notice, there is no requirement to have a phenomenal vocabulary. You also do not even require to be a genius in English grammar. You need to look at a sentence and have an intuitive feeling for is this sentence grammatically correct or not. You're not going to be tested on gerunds and past participles. Keep that in mind. This is an entirely application oriented exam. So keep that in mind. Okay. Now to the overall paper, this is an objective exam throughout multiple choice. There will be 4 choices for each question. You'll get +3 for a correct answer, -1 for wrong answer. You can skip questions. The exam is usually conducted in November. I'm going to go through the timeline preparation plan in the next video. They conduct it over multiple sessions. So it's not like all students write on the same day. Because of that, they have what is called as a normalization process. So they adjust for levels of difficulty across sessions. At the end of this, you will get a score which will then be converted to a percentile. So your phase 2 of your preparation, of your planning, will be entirely dependent on what percentile you score. So do you get 98th percentile or 99th percentile or 95th percentile? That will drive your score. So the whole idea is to finish this exam and be in the top 1% or top 0.5% of the people who are writing this